Previously on What If Deku Lived with a Broken Momo Yaoyorozu. Tensions rose, battles raged, and trust was tested. Now in Part 3, the darkness deepens. Can Deku save what's left of her? 4 days have passed at the Pussycats camp and the training has been hellish. According to Aizawa-sensei, they were looking to make us explode our limits, plus ultra, but, for some reason, Aizawa-sensei was very focused on me. According to him, All Might had told him about my training and now I'm doing this. Diaresis. Right now we are in an area somewhat removed from the rest of the students. Aizawa was standing with his arms crossed and in complete silence while he was watching that our green-haired friend complied with the training from start to finish. The green-haired boy was sweating and his arms were shaking excessively, but the boy wasn't willing to give up. The training was to help him improve and become a future hero. He had already passed the hardest part of fulfilling his dream, so now all he had to do was train hard. "There you are," said a voice behind the black-haired man. Eraserhead turned his head and found Mandalay. "What are you doing here? I thought you were supervising the rest," the black-haired man mentioned, returning his gaze to Midoriya, who continued his training despite how exhausted he currently felt. "We decided to give them a break. You should do the same, you've been over-exploiting them since." "That happened," the feline whispered. The black-haired man looked away proudly. "I don't know what you mean, I'm just following the instructions his mentor gave me for Midoriya," Aizawa explained with a calm and monotonous voice, however he had a swollen vein on his forehead. Flashback. It was afternoon and the boys from Class A and Class B were working together during lunchtime. Each one had their respective tasks, from getting wood to light the fire, to cutting the ingredients that would be used. However, right now an idea had occurred to them. "Well, since I still see a lot of energy and strong rivalries, we will have a cooking contest. The best dish will give you benefits, such as entering the showers first and choosing training routines," Mandalay told the kids. "This will be too simple, I doubt that those in Class A even know how to use a spoon properly," Monoma mocked, when he received a blow from Kendo. "I'm sorry," the young woman apologized, pushing the blonde away and sitting him down with his head resting on one of the tables. "Okay guys, one of you will be a judge alongside us, while 5 of you per class will participate in the contest," Pixie Bob explained, watching as the participants were now working as quickly as possible, while the rest just had to wait. The contestants from Class A were Tsuyu, Kirishima, Bakugo, Sato, and Midoriya. On the side of Class B were Kendo, Awase, Sensuna, Shota, and Komori. Apparently they were the ones who were best at cooking, according to their classmates. The pressure cookers were kept at a very high temperature. Bakugo, Kirishima, Shota and Komori were in charge of cutting the food for their respective teams. "Dude, I feel like I'm in Food Wars," Ijiru exclaimed with a big, sharp smile full of excitement, then transferred all the ingredients to the pot that Tsuyu and Sato watched while seasoning with some spices. "Don't be an idiot, you crappy hair. Be more careful, you can't put anything in the time," Bakugo roared, starting to handle the knife to speed up the process while on the other side things looked calmer. "Wow Komori-san, your mushrooms will be a hit," Awase commented, making the girl smile. "It's my gift, my curse," she commented with a mocking smile, because she had created different sizes, textures and special flavors. "Midoriya, once you finish washing the vegetables, take them to Kirishima and Bakugo, then I'll need you to get me some cilantro and oregano," said the burly brown-haired boy. "Hi, Sato-san," the boy replied with a smile, who complied with the order, although Bakugo yelled at him a couple of things for giving him more work than necessary. Time passed and now it looked like everyone was waiting patiently. Even Monoma had woken up, so when he saw Izuku walking near him, he ended up coming up with a prank. "Midoriya-chan, could you set up the judges' plates?" Tsuyu asked, using a ladle and a small bowl to sample what they had achieved as a team. "Hi." The green-haired boy replied with a kind smile. The boy now placed the plates for Aizawa, Mandalay, Pixie Bob, Ragdoll, Tiger, Vlad and 2 students, Momo and Yui Kodai, who were chosen as judges. "I feel like we're just wasting our time," Aizawa mentioned uncomfortably, sitting at the judges' table next to Mandalay, while the seat next to him was empty and belonged to Momo. "Hey, they're kids, maybe they came to train but they also have to rest and relax for a while," Tiger commented, wanting to calm his friend and teammate a little. Momo and Kodai were heading to their places. Midoriya was going for the second round carrying everything that the judges would use. However, at that moment they saw how Izuku stumbled while the most blatant oops that Monoma could give was heard. The plates fell to the floor, but it was not the only thing that fell with Deku. "Midoriya-kun. Wait, I'll help you," Ida exclaimed, wanting to help his friend, while several of those present gave the blonde a dirty look, who mocked him when he saw that Izuku wasn't the only one to fall. For his part, Tenya blushed when he saw the small accident that the green-haired boy was facing at this moment. Izuku was on the floor looking startled, and an awkward silence followed. Aizawa had a swollen vein on his temple, while he watched as Izuku accidentally stumbled and ended up awkwardly close to Momo, causing an unintended and embarrassing moment. "It can't be. Midoriya got too close to Momo," Mineta shouted, his hands on his head, breaking off a couple of spheres in frustration and jealousy. The people involved blushed and the green-haired boy quickly separated from Momo with his eyes spiraling, while Momo was in the same situation. I'm so sorry, Momo, I don't. The green-haired boy stammered while Aizawa got up from the judge's table. At that moment Mandalay and Pixie Bob jumped on him. "That damn broccoli with legs is too trusting with my daughter," Aizawa screamed internally. His eyes were red like a demon's while the pussycats tried to calm the anger of an inexperienced father. "That damn broccoli with legs is too trusting with my daughter," Aizawa screamed internally. His eyes were red like a demon's while the pussycats tried to calm the anger of an inexperienced father. "Eraser, calm down," said the adults, who were ignored because for the kids it was more interesting to discover perhaps the first couple of Class 1A, without knowing that one already existed within said class. End of flashback. "What bothers me the most is that Midoriya can be around her without it looking weird," the black-haired man explained his point. "Wow, I never thought you were a jealous man, poor thing," the brunette laughed. "Hey, but seriously, isn't the embers a bit excessive?" Mandalay asked, looking at the green-haired man with his abdomen completely soaked in sweat. "The embers will teach him to control his temperature and also that if he gets tired and falls, he will burn himself," Aizawa answered, looking at Izuku. "How many do you have left?" the black-haired man asked, looking at Izuku. 123, the green-haired boy said, climbing with great effort, while some silhouettes in the distance approached when they found Izuku. 77. I'm missing 77, the boy said, clenching his jaw very tightly. "Look, there's Deku," Uraka mentioned, watching him approach, but Aizawa turned around and shook his head. "I won't let you interrupt Midoriya's training. He was almost finished. If you plan to stay, do so, but don't distract him," said the man, returning his attention to his student. "Aizawa-sensei, this seems more like a punishment than a training," Momo commented, dissatisfied, seeing how her friend was doing his best to avoid falling into the embers that were under his torso and abdomen. "I'm just helping Midoriya with his training. This is something we used to do when we were students. These are things that veterans did in their golden age," Aizawa explained, seeing that the boy, despite looking very tired, had no intention of stopping. At that moment then, Momo, Ararakak, Mandalay and Aizawa watched as Kirishima, Todoroki and Ida took off their shirts and threw themselves on the ground face down, then settled into the same position and accompanied their friend in this. "Guys, what are you doing?" the green-haired boy asked, confused, while watching his friend smile. "We won't leave you alone in this, friend, we are together," Kirishima replied, making Bakugo annoyed at being the only one who wasn't on the ground like them. "Hey! Do you think I'm going to let you guys get ahead of me? I can do much better than you guys," Katsuki said, taking off his shirt and settling in next to Eiichiro, while Izuku was surprised, even Kachan. "Go ahead, Todoroki-san, make sure the ember is under us too," Ida asked. The two-colored-haired boy nodded and the ember was under everyone. "Sato, Shoji, bring the rocks too," Ida asked while the aforementioned began to arrange the rocks like Izuku. "Guys," the green-haired boy murmured, surprised to see them waiting for something, except for Bakugo who was doing push-ups in an exaggerated way. "You set the pace, Izubro," the redhead mentioned. "Fine, from zero," the boy said, surprising Aizawa. Then the boys began to follow Izuku's pace, while the rest began to count the push-ups. The goal was 200. 47 minutes later, the boys were exhausted and sweating a lot. The girls from Class A approached with towels and passed them to the boys. However, before Momo could give Izuku one of these, Uraka got there first. "Deku-kun, here," Uraka was now offering him that item. Momo watched as the green-haired boy received the object politely and began to wipe the sweat from his body. Ochako couldn't help but blush, because all he did was jump to help his friend first before Momo did. "Thank you very much, Uraka-san," the boy mentioned. Momo sighed in regret, while Todoroki approached and she gave him the towel, something that did not go unnoticed by Izuku, who felt somewhat strange. "If there's something on your mind, don't hesitate to say it," the boy commented as he left with the towel around his neck. Momo now watched Izuku talking with his dearest friends. Ida congratulated him on the type of training he was doing and told him that if he allowed him, he wanted to be part of that regime to become a better hero. Momo sighed tiredly, but when she turned around she saw something that made her smile and take Todoroki's words more seriously. "Here, you stink, Kyoka said, throwing a towel to Kirishima. The purple-haired girl turned her back on him with a blush while crossing her arms. The redhead smiled. He loved that side of his girlfriend. I know, replied the redhead with sharp teeth, as he began to wipe away the sweat. Hey guys, you better go take a shower, because tonight, we're all going to have fun. We'll have a test of courage, Class A versus Class B, Mandalay mentioned optimistically, drawing the boys' attention. Izuku, Momo called. The green-haired boy, upon hearing her voice and seeing her approaching, couldn't help but blush. The incident from days ago was still etched in his memory. Momo, hello. Do you need anything? The freckled boy asked, while Uraka was now the one who became serious upon seeing the brunette. Well, since you're going to take a bath with the boys, I wanted to know if... do you want me to make you something to eat? You must be hungry after all that exercise, the black-haired girl commented, this not going unnoticed by either Aizawa or Uraka. I wouldn't want to bother you, you must, Izuku commented, slightly blushing, while Momo smiled. It's not a bother, it's something I do a lot when we're at home, the girl replied. Also, you'll need strength for the test of courage, Momo explained, making the green-haired boy turn to look at his friends. Shoto and Tenya nodded. Kirishima gave a thumbs up with a smile and Bakugo groaned and looked away with his arms crossed. Okay, I really appreciate the gesture, Momo, thank you, mentioned the green-haired man while Momo became very happy to hear those words. Well, we'll go take a bath. Excuse me girls, Aizawa-sensei, Mandalay-san, Ida said so the boys could leave as a group while Momo was preparing something to prepare for Midoriya to eat, but she was stopped by someone. Do you mind if I accompany you, Kyoka said while Momo nodded. Don't worry, you'll be able to see what Inko-san has been teaching me, I've improved a lot, Momo commented happily. Can I join? The kids worked really hard today, and I think the best thing we can do for them is make them something delicious, Uraka said. Momo wasn't feeling comfortable this time. Ochako had been acting very strange around her for days. Sure, the black-haired girl answered somewhat unsurely, and so the three girls went back to the facilities to prepare something, while elsewhere Pixie Bob and Ragdoll were seen talking to those in Class B about the test of courage. Right now we can see how the boys were relaxing after trying to overcome Midoriya's training. The green-haired boy looked somewhat confused with what he was experiencing lately. The confusion was so much that being near Momo made him too nervous, something that had not happened for a long time. Are you okay with Midoriya? Tenya asked from beside him. The green-haired boy snapped out of his thoughts to check on his friend. Yes, don't worry Ida-kun, I'm fine, Izuku replied, looking at the boy with glasses. You can tell us anything, after all we are friends, Kirishima mentioned, animatedly putting his arm over the green-haired boy's shoulders. Speak for yourself, I'm not friends with a good-for-nothing crying nerd, Bakugo mentioned with a wet towel on his face. I love you too, Kachan, Izuku replied with a drop of sweat running down his neck. Midoriya, is something going on between you and Momo-san? Todoroki asked, making Izuku blush. Why do you ask? Izuku asked very nervously, making the bicolor just look at him. It's not that I'm very interested in these types of topics, but, you're my best friend and I consider her a good friend. Days ago you seemed very protective and you didn't leave her side, your friendship became very strong, but... Since the kiss happened, with those words Izuku just slipped into the water, the only thing that was outside were his eyes and his green hair, while bubbles came out that he produced out of embarrassment. The detective does it again, Kirishima mocked a little, while now the attention was on the green-haired man. Midoriya, do you like Momo-san? Todoroki asked calmly, causing Izuku to fall silent with that question. Diaresis, am I in love with her? Diaresis Momo is a very good friend, she's very pretty and affectionate, now she's like family to me, but... Love? Love of that kind? Diaresis, the green-haired boy thought, the bathrooms falling silent, until Bakugo began to move uncomfortably. Damn ridiculous exercise, my back is killing me, complained the blonde who couldn't find a position where his back didn't hurt. Do you want me to rip it off for you? Kirishima asked. You come closer and you die, Bakugo sentenced sternly. Ida, for his part, tried to calm them both down, while Todoroki continued looking at Izuku. His friend looked seriously very thoughtful, perhaps he should address the issue when they were alone, in a more trusting environment. Meanwhile, at the entrance to the forest, one of the earth creatures was seen being torn apart by a powerful punch. This place looks fun, a robust guy with a plague mask covering his face mentioned. Don't rush Rappa, we have to study the environment to know how to proceed, we don't know anything about these kids and according to the information we got, there are professional heroes around here, said the one who seemed to be the boss, who kept a small gray-haired girl at his side. "Why are we doing such a stupid job?" asked the man called Rappa, without looking at his boss. "Why? It's an easy question to answer. The money that Mrs. Yaoyorozu was kindly giving us was returned to her. We don't need her money. However, being one of the most powerful families in all of Japan, if that woman owes me a favor, I will collect it someday and I plan to use it in a way that all her influence acts for our benefit," the man commented calmly. While these subjects continued talking, on the other side of the forest one could see how there were more silhouettes, however their appearances were very sinister and striking. The afternoon passed peacefully. Once the boys left the hot springs, they found food that the girls had prepared for them. Even the girls from Class B offered to help. However, out of all the dishes, there was only one that was different. Momo Yaoyorozu had prepared exclusively for Izuku, a portion of katsudon, while the rest would eat fried rice with vegetables and some steamed vegetables. "Oh, no. You shouldn't have bothered," the green-haired man commented while the black-haired woman smiled. "I told you, it's no bother," Momo replied, while Uraka stared at her. This time before she could take the food to Izuku, it was Momo who arrived first offering him the food. "Well, thank you very much," said the green-haired boy as he began to eat. That's when he felt his mother's seasoning, but there was something different, something he still couldn't detect, but that something wasn't something that bothered him. For some reason, that special something made him enjoy the food even more. For her part, Kyoka approached Kirishima and left him the plate, this time being seen by Kaminari, who raised his eyebrow somewhat curiously at this. "Don't expect too much, we all prepared the same thing but each one did it on their own," Kyoka declared, turning her back on the redhead. "Thank you, I'm sure you made a great effort and it will be delicious," mentioned the redhead praising his girlfriend, who only blushed. "You're stupid," the girl complained, feeling very embarrassed. After a pleasant lunch, the time had come to nightfall, and it looked like the pussycats had everything organized for the evening. Class B was within the established limits for the test, while the boys in Class A were now choosing partners for the test. However, "You're coming with me," Aizawa said, holding Kirishima, Mina, Kaminari, Sato, and Sero. "Wait. I want to have fun too, it's not fair," Mina mentioned, clinging to the ground with her nails while Aizawa dragged the five of them without problems. "They're still the worst in the class, so we'll use one of the rooms as a classroom to reinforce the topics they've been doing poorly on all year," said the black-haired man with a tired voice. "Guys, come closer, what we're going to do now is select the couples," Tiger commented, holding a box, while Mandalay was standing next to him. One by one they went to take their numbers, while two girls shared the thought, "I want to be with Deku/Izuku. Find your partners, the person who shares a number with you will be the one you will work with during the test of courage," Mandalay explained to the boys, watching as Mineta searched for the other number 8 among the girls, without any success. "Izuku/Deku, what number is yours?" Momo and Uraka asked, making the boy get nervous and step back a little. "Number 3," the green-haired man replied, showing his little piece of paper. "Number 3, you'll be with me then," Kyoka mentioned, approaching the green-haired boy. Momo and Uraka sighed with regret. Now they saw how Ida was with Kota, Fumikage with Ojiro, Midoriya with Jiru, Todoroki, and Bakugo, Tsuyu and Toru, Shoji and Aoyama. Mineta was left without a partner looking for number 8, while Momo and Uraka were left as a couple. Now the boys advanced through the forest, while those from Class B were strategically hidden. Some heard an explosion and saw a flame in the distance, indicating that Bakugo and Todoroki had been there previously. However, now Izuku and Kyoka were walking calmly, encountering a pair of Class B boys, charred and coughing up smoke. Then, to some people's surprise, the trees began to burst into flames in a blue blaze. "What's going on?" Kyoka asked in shock, as a young man in black clothes and dark hair appeared in front of the green-haired man in the rocker. "The party has just begun," said the guy, still smiling. The crimson color of the flames spread rapidly. Everything that had been green was now covered in a dense cloud of smoke and was being consumed by the scorching heat. Calling for help was not an option, and since it was a fun activity, they didn't see the need to have their cell phones handy. Kyoka and Izuku were currently standing back to back, searching for any strange movement that might indicate they were under attack or if it was just an accident. Jiru wasted no time, kneeling down and bringing his jacks to the ground, listening for any vibrations that would indicate if there were enemies nearby, while Deku was on the alert in case they were trying to ambush them. "I don't detect anyone, I don't like this at all, a fire of this magnitude doesn't appear for nothing, Midoriya, we have to go back and look for the others," declared a worried Kyoka, turning to see her partner. Izuku observed the fire seriously. Todoroki and Bakugo were not so unconscious as to set fire in a wild area, something else must have caused it. Diaresis. Maybe I could try to put out the flames by recreating All Might's Nebraska Smash. I've never tried it and it could be too complicated for me, not to mention that if I fail there will be several consequences of trying. The flames could go out or intensify if I do it wrong. Diaresis. Izuku thought about the pros and cons of acting or not against the fire. Midoriya. Midoriya, damn it. This is no time to be babbling like an idiot. Act, Kyoka shouted, trying to make him react, but since the boy wouldn't come out of his thoughts, she had no choice. Kyoka launched her jacks directly at Midoriya's neck, causing him a rather annoying pain, which managed to make him react. Jiru-san, the boy exclaimed, bewildered, feeling the pain in his neck, while Kyoka withdrew her jacks and the boy rubbed the sore area, looking at her strangely. We can't keep wasting time, we have to get out of here. Now, the purple-haired girl exclaimed, very scared and worried, finding herself in a situation where her partner didn't seem to want to cooperate. The green-haired man returned his gaze to the fire, searching for a way out. They were surrounded, so he made a decision: they had to get out of there as soon as possible. You're right, excuse me, Izuku asked because he was acting selfishly. Wait. What are you doing? Jiru asked somewhat nervously, while the green-haired boy picked her up in his arms, carrying her like a princess. I'll get you out of here. I don't care if I get in trouble, but I won't let anything happen to you. Momo and Kirishima would kill me if anything happened to you, the green-haired man commented while concentrating his power in his legs. He bent his knees and before he could jump, a blue flame blocked their path. Damn, the green-haired man exclaimed when he was interrupted. Kya-ah, Kyoka screamed while Izuku instinctively protected her using his body as a shield. The boy hugged her protectively, while the panicked girl clung tightly and fearfully to her friend. Slowly a dark silhouette appeared walking through the flames. That subject crossed the wall of fire as if it were a door and then stopped in front of Deku and Earphone Jack. Izuku turned his face and found himself with the person who was perhaps the cause of all this. You're not who I was hoping to find, this guy mentioned. He was a tall young man with somewhat messy, spiky black hair. His skin was quite strange as he seemed to have burnt skin grafts on his eyes, part of his lower jaw and neck. Said grafts were connected with rivets to the healthy skin. Their clothing could not be clearly seen due to the lighting, but dark tones can be seen in their clothing, which are a trench coat, dark pants, and boots. Who are you and what do you want? Midoriya asked, not taking his eyes off the man. Something inside him was screaming danger and telling him to get out of there right now. If you want to know, then. He extended his hand towards the green-haired boy. Come with me, the one in dark clothes asked in a very calm tone. Izuku didn't take his eyes off him. He was about to put Kyoka down to find out more, but she held on tightly and he felt it. His friend, the toughest of the girls, was scared. Let's go, please, the purple-haired girl begged, closing her eyes while the green-haired boy came back to himself. He found himself in a rather tense situation. The battlefield was a disadvantage, not to mention that the guy looked more experienced. Deku nodded at Jiru's request and got ready again. Hold on, Deku mentioned, gathering a certain amount of one for all power in his legs and then jumping away, leaving that guy behind. He just watched them leave and put his hands in his pocket to continue walking through the burning area with complete calm. Wait, Midoriya, Jiru shouted with a comical expression. Her eyes were blank and she had tears that disappeared due to the speed of the jumps and falls, while the air shook her hair and Jack's Midoriya, the rocker shouted, showing true fear of heights. In the sky you could see how a cloud of gas was dispersing through the forest. Some students who noticed this began to flee to a safe area. However, between the bushes and trees we could see how Ochako, Uraka and Momo ran in search of their classmates. At that moment the little light of the moon illuminated them, showing that both were wearing gas masks. Are you sure you don't want to ride? Uraka asked, turning to see Momo, who was running without taking her eyes off the road. No, you'll just waste energy unnecessarily. If we get ambushed we'd be at a disadvantage. For now keep running. If memory serves me right, we're close to the dorms and the camp, Momo replied while Uraka nodded. Look Momo, over there, Uraka pointed out, showing how a girl from Class B was running. The most curious thing about this was that the girl had her fists enlarged and seemed to be carrying something inside. It's Itsuka-chan, Momo exclaimed in surprise as she ran and concentrated on creating a gas mask for the aforementioned. Itsuka at that moment seemed to be doing her best to hold her breath, and from her clumsy steps it seemed that she had been holding it for a while. Itsuka-chan, Uraka called, making the girl turn around. The young woman with orange hair made a sign for them to follow her. She knew the way back, but Momo stopped her. Wait, put this on, Momo asked while placing the mask on the girl, who finally recovered the wonderful air she longed for. Thank you, the young orange-haired girl responded heavily. She looked too agitated since the adrenaline had her very high. For her part, Momo created a second mask watching as Kendo freed her friend so that she could still survive the gas. "Have you seen the others?" Momo asked, watching the green-eyed girl shake her head. "I have Yui with me. I thought I saw Kanoko and Reiko a few minutes ago. They were already near the exit. I went back to look for Yui and the rest of my companions. I think they are all outside, except for us," clarified the martial artist while Momo and Uraka looked at each other. "Did you see Izuku-kun and Kyoka-chan?" Momo asked, letting everyone see her worried sick about both of them. "No, but knowing Midoriya they should have already returned," explained the orange-haired girl. "Now let's not waste time, let's go, we have to get out of here," Kendo commented, making the girls nod. That way they all continued running. Meanwhile, a few meters away from that area, we can see how a man with brown hair and a strange mask very similar to that of a plague doctor appeared while he looked annoyed at one of his hands that had a strange rash. You could see that there was blood and he had marks of having been bitten. "Damn brat, she bit me," complained the guy, who began to notice a curious change in the atmosphere. There was a strange feeling of hostility everywhere. "I have to find Eri before someone else does," complained the man looking at his hand. The rash was beginning to become annoying and causing him quite a bit of anxiety, so he began to scratch it. For their part, Izuku and Kyoka had managed to reach the safe zone, but it was too strange, there was absolutely no one in the area. "Let's look for Aizawa-sensei," Izuku mentioned, looking at Kyoka nodding. They both started running. As they understood, he would be giving classes to the kids who had failed, so when they got closer to that place, they ended up receiving a message in their heads. "Attention gentlemen, we are currently under attack. Some villains managed to access our camp. We have no idea how many there may be. Guys, if you meet someone unknown, do not attack them. Run away and seek shelter." Izuku and Kyoka were surprised. That meant there was more. It was then that they saw Aizawa come out of that special room where he would help those who failed the exams. The man had a specific name floating around in his head, but it faded when he saw a couple of his students in the area. "What are you doing here?" the black-haired man asked sternly, looking at Izuku and Kyoka. "Sensei, in the forest we were attacked by a man who can manipulate fire," said the green-haired man worriedly. "Go into the living room, Vlad is there with some of his classmates. I should go help," the black-haired man declared seriously. "Sensei, can I help? I need to make sure Momo is okay," the green-haired man commented looking at Aizawa. The man was about to refuse, but then a strange silhouette came out of nowhere and attacked the hero and his students, but they dodged it, looking at the strange silhouette fall to the ground. The creature ended up on the floor and turned around staring at them, when Aizawa became alert and focused on a couple of people who had made an appearance. "So you know the girl, how about you tell us where our target is and we leave you alone," commented a blond man wearing a black beak-shaped mask. He dressed elegantly, wearing a long-sleeved green shirt and black pants. Diaresis Momo Diaresis, Izuku, Aizawa and Kyoka thought, seeing this strange group that had appeared before them. Back with Momo and Uraka, we can see how both of them ran hoping to get out of the forest while Kendo and Kodai followed them closely. Behind them a thick cloud of gas was on their heels. Fortunately for the girls, each one was wearing their gas masks. The group slowly approached the exit, but it was then that Kodai stopped suddenly, drawing the attention of her friends and companions. "Yui, what are you doing? We have to get out of here, there are villains and we can't afford to run into any of them," Kendo commented, looking at her friend with concern. However, the brunette pointed at something that was walking awkwardly. "Over there, I can't really make it out, but I thought I saw someone," Yui replied, looking at the girls while pointing in the direction where she saw movement. "It could be a trap, we have to return to camp," Uraka commented, very distrustful of her surroundings. "But what if she isn't?" Momo asked, looking at the brunette. "We're supposed to be studying to be heroines, we can't turn our backs on her. If you want to go out, no problem, I'll go," said the brunette, who was acting a little irresponsible this time. "Wait, Momo," Kendo called worriedly. "Go ahead, I'll stay with her, we'll go back together," Yui mentioned, surprising Kendo. Having seen that silhouette, she felt responsible for helping her. "Yui, are you too?" the orange-haired girl asked worriedly when she saw the two black-haired girls running towards the silhouette. When they arrived, they both got a huge surprise. It was a little girl with white hair. She was holding her throat and was crying. Her red eyes expressed pure despair at not being able to breathe properly, while she had blood in her mouth. This scared them because they did not expect the gas to be so harmful as to make her bleed from the mouth to that point. When they arrived, they were both in for a huge surprise. It was a little girl with white hair. She was holding her throat and crying. Her red eyes expressed pure desperation at not being able to breathe properly. She had. Uraka and Kendo saw them walk away and had no choice but to run after them. They weren't going to leave them alone, since their strong suit wasn't exactly hand-to-hand combat. "Hey! I'm here, don't lose your cool and breathe slowly," Momo asked, placing a mask on the little girl. "She's a girl," Uraka mentioned in shock. "Good thing they didn't leave her behind." "I can't, no. I see can't," the little girl mentioned, beginning to lose consciousness. Her vision began to blur, until Momo secured the mask. This allowed the girl to breathe desperately. "Shh, shh, shh, calm down, breathe slowly and calmly, nothing is happening," Momo explained, making the girl follow her instructions and normalize her breathing. Slowly her vision improved as she was better oxygenated. However, unfortunately for the girl was scared when she saw them wearing those terrifying masks. "No, no, let me go," the girl begged, while Momo did her best to calm her down. Yui realized a few things. "Wow, calm down little one, we are not the bad ones, we just want to help you," Kendo said, wanting to calm the girl down. "Momo, we have to get her out of here, look at her arms and legs," Kodai asked. So the former Yaoyorozu looked down and noticed that the girl had bandages covering her arms and legs, and that her clothes were just a worn-out nightgown in terrible condition. "What's your name?" Momo asked. The little girl calmed down a bit, as it meant they weren't with that man. "Were you camping in the area? Are you coming with someone?" Momo asked, but then a cut appeared on Momo's cheek, and she only felt the blood trickle down. "That face of yours is the best. You look so beautiful. Would you like to be my friend?" asked a young blonde woman wearing a school uniform consisting of a beige sweater, a navy blue skirt, blue socks that reached below the knee, brown school shoes, and she also seemed to have some kind of backpack on her back. "So beautiful. Would you like to be my friend?" asked a young blonde woman wearing a school uniform consisting of a beige sweater, a navy blue skirt, blue socks that reached below the knee, brown school shoes, and Momo, upon seeing the stranger, quickly hugged the girl protectively, while Kodai looked on worriedly. She wasn't an attacking type of hero, so the situation was stacked against them, while Uraka and Kendo raised their guard to defend the girls. Unknown location. We can see how a small silhouette looked in complete shock as the forest was on fire. His legs trembled and he was completely motionless. It was then that a huge shadow covered him from head to toe. This scared him because no one should know that place. "This is a pretty cool place, don't you think?" asked the enormous silhouette standing in front of the little boy, a few tears welling up in his eyes. "That cap is too good for a kid, trade it for this silly toy mask," mentioned the enormous silhouette. In the moonlight he could be seen with a hood covering his body, while his face was covered by a white mask with several holes. The guy removed his mask and dropped it, and it was then that the boy panicked. That smile, that damn thing, told him he wasn't going to make it out alive. "Mom, Dad," the young man whispered when he recognized the man standing in front of him. "You know, without your cap you look pretty familiar to me," the huge guy mentioned, who came a little closer to stare at the little guy in front of him. "I guess you just look like someone I already killed," the guy declared, downplaying it. "Anyway, that's enough talk, it's time to work," the man mentioned, clenching his fist, as his arm was covered in muscle tissue and hit the little guy's stomach. The impact was so powerful that the boy's eyes rolled back in his head while he spit out some saliva in the process. The boy ended up on the ground and seemed unable to move, while the huge man calmly approached his victim. "You weren't on the list, but I can kill you for more pleasure," the subject said as his arm was covered with muscle tissue again. Then a powerful punch made the huge subject retreat. "That blow hurt me," the subject commented, looking at his attacker. "I'm not one to get involved in other people's fights, but hitting someone who isn't conscious is dishonorable," a masked man with long brown hair commented sternly. He was muscular and his clothes consisted of a tight-fitting white short-sleeved shirt, black pants and military boots, while his hands and forearms were covered by metal plates. "His will be fun, more bugs to squash, come here buddy, let's have fun," mentioned the huge guy who began to cover his body with a muscle mass, destroying the layer that covered him, leaving him looking like a blonde man with one eye. The two men lunged at each other and clashed fists, sending a gust of air up to kick up dust and rocks. "I'll tear you to pieces," said the blonde with a crazy smile. "You talk too much," the masked man replied sternly. Everything was blurry. I heard very altered and somewhat distorted voices. I could barely understand what they were saying. My head was spinning. I was cold and I felt the air currents running through my body. It didn't help. "He's losing a lot of blood, his signs are going down, we need to give him." The patient felt dazed and very confused. His breathing was labored and he was assisted by an oxygen mask, but it couldn't do much thanks to the internal injuries. His eyes opened with great difficulty. He saw blurry silhouettes, but when he focused on the ceiling he only saw annoying white lights that gave him a terrible headache. "Administer what?" the man asked, confused, when he felt a prick in his right arm. He reacted to the injection. He seems to be regaining consciousness, one of the orderlies warned. Upon hearing this, one of the figures accompanying him quickly approached. Sir, do you remember what happened? The man asked worriedly, but before he could answer, a voice caught the patient's attention, who turned his face and could barely make out a head of black hair. Kansas. Kansas. Kaoru Aizawa whispered, confusing the person in front of him. Dad, can you hear me? The silhouette asked in a feminine voice. It belonged to a young woman with black hair who was trying to keep up with the moving stretcher. Miss, the patient's ribs are broken and his lungs have been punctured. Making him talk is not a good idea, he will only waste his energy unnecessarily. Sir, please don't talk and save your energy. We are taking him to the emergency room for treatment. One of the doctors explained, as they got closer and closer to the area. Momo, the man insisted weakly, while the image of the girl came to his head. Shh, calm down Dad, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, the young woman responded desperately to the adult's call. Momo, cough. 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 Daughter, the man called, while in his mind the image of the girl appeared with an expression of fear, sadness and despair. The man raised his hand with great difficulty and the young woman took it in hers. Here I am, the young woman said, feeling useless. After all, it was her fault that the black-haired man was in that state. You'll be okay, Dad, you'll be okay, there are so many things I need to know, please, just hold on, don't leave me now, Momo begged, very worried, but then the man began to move strangely. Dad? Sensei? Aizawa sensei? The girl called when she saw that Aizawa was getting worse. It was then that they stopped her after arriving at the emergency room. We can't waste any more time, it's an attack, we have to proceed now, warned one of the doctors, watching as the patient began to convulse. No, Dad. No, Dad. The young woman screamed in despair, tears of helplessness streaming down her cheeks as the doctor denied her access, standing between her and the emergency room. Miss, please calm down, we will do everything possible to save him, trust us, recovery girl is on her way, when we manage to stabilize him and give him enough rest, everything will be in your hands, the heroine, to support your father's recovery, for now just stay calm, explained one of the doctors, while Mandalay appeared behind Momo and hugged her. Everything will be okay, darling, your father is the most stubborn and strong man I know, now that you know the truth, he won't give up, you can trust me, said the woman with tears in her eyes while comforting Momo with a hug. Quickly. We have to treat him, we're losing him, said one of those present, noticing how all the doctors were ready to proceed. It was then that everything went completely dark for the patient. Hours ago. A powerful dry blow resonated throughout the forest, followed by the rumble of an impact that ended up scaring away the animals that had hidden in their burrows seeking shelter. Then a last impact was heard loudly, looking like two enormous fists impacted the face of their opponent, who received the impact without fear. You're not doing so bad for a damn weakling, it's been years since I've had as much fun as this, mentioned an excited blonde whose teeth were stained red and who was doing his best to turn his face and look in the direction of his opponent. On the other side we can see how that masked man who seemed to have a kind of beak, his body did not feel pain, but his voice showed a lot of emotion. This was a fight between men without any kind of restrictions. This is how fights should be, to the death and without interruptions. I plan to shatter you so don't break too quickly, declared the masked man mockingly. It seemed both rivals were enjoying the encounter since neither seemed to have any intention of giving in. That's if I don't tear you apart first, exclaimed the villain while his body turned into an enormous, pink, and deformed muscular mass which began to grow bigger and bigger. Taking advantage of this, he grabbed the masked man by the face with his right hand. That's if I don't tear you apart first, exclaimed the villain as his body turned into a huge, pink, and deformed muscular mass that began to grow bigger and bigger. Taking advantage of this, he grabbed the masked man by the face with his right hand and started running, pushing his enemy's body against the mountain behind him. He began to rub his face against the rocks, trying to cause as much damage as possible. This ended up breaking the lower part of his mask in the process. Ha 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 ha, I hate ending things so quickly, but to be honest, I wish I could see you bleed, exclaimed the pink muscular man in ecstasy, when a powerful punch to his forearm made his body vibrate and forced him to let go of the masked man. What the hell? The blonde asked, feeling a strange tingling in his arm. It wasn't bad at all, old man. The masked man put his hand to his left shoulder and began to shake his head from side to side, but I thought this fight would be bare knuckle, complained the guy with metal in his hands taking a fighting stance. I like to play with my food, the blonde claimed mockingly, shaking his arm, managing to ward off the momentary numbness, while he opened and closed his hand, making sure everything was okay, but then a punch took him by surprise. No time to rest. The masked man shouted, initiating a sequence of punches that slowly pushed him backward. It didn't matter how much he shielded himself with his arms, he was still pushed back, to the point where his defense began to break. Diaresis, what the heck is going on? I've never been hurt like this before, my body is supposed to be able to withstand the impact of a moving vehicle, and this guy Diaresis, Muscular said, his smile gone, and he could only feel a strange tickling that turned into tingling, then into discomfort, and little by little into pain. At that moment the blonde villain's body began to shake, while his muscles began to lose size and thickness. This ended up taking him by surprise. What's wrong? Was that all you had? It seems to me that you're just one of those guys who likes the sound of his voice. I, on the other hand, like the sound of my fists hitting you, commented the masked man, who hits his opponent at an impressive speed, managing to make that pink mass that the Cyclops called muscle retreat. The way in which I'm going to crush that pride of yours, I'm going to enjoy it, like you can't imagine, sentenced the masked man, while the blonde doubled over completely and fell to the ground coughing some blood. No, this can't be happening, Muscular said with his gaze focused on the ground while looking at his own blood on the ground. What's wrong, old man? Can't you take it anymore? Come on, just get fat one more time and we can continue our fight. Come on, do it, do it, do it, do it, the masked man demanded, putting pressure on Muscular. I'll kill you, the man shouted as he covered himself once again with a rather swollen mantle of his own muscle mass, allowing him to withstand the brunt of enemy attacks. You're a good fatso, come here, exclaimed the excited masked man, when a punch hit his face, making him crash against a mountain. The games are over, declared the blonde, walking towards the masked man, who stood up and launched an attack, starting a rain of punches which left some impact marks that the blonde could not regenerate so quickly. Diaresis' fists are moving very fast, I can't catch him, I'll have to eliminate him before I run out of resistance. Diaresis, Muscular thought, who chose to let himself be hit and resist, while he extended his hands and opened his palms. I will crush your head like you were an insect, Muscular shouted, ready to smash the masked man's skull. When his hands were about to hit his skull, the masked man raised his arms and the attack hit his forearms. That was close, the masked man mocked a little. Now it's my turn, the guy shouted, throwing himself at the pink muscle man. Meanwhile, in another area we can see how Aizawa, Izuku and Kyoko were facing a group of strangers who had come out of nowhere, and there was also that villain who had appeared to attack the Eraser hero. And who are you? The man with the blue flames calmly asked, since the report they had received hadn't mentioned a group like this in the area. Sorry, how rude of me, my name is Toya Setsuno, official member of Shihaseikai, and I tell you this with all the confidence in the world since I do not intend to let you leave alive, mentioned that blonde with a beak-shaped mask. At that moment a blue flame was launched against the blonde. This took Aizawa and his students by surprise. Now their attention was completely focused on the subject with the flame quirk, who maintained a serious expression and focused on the newcomers. I don't like you interfering with my work, but I can make an exception and kill you first and then them, declared the subject with the burns on his body while focusing his gaze on his victims. Midoriya, Jiru, I want you both out of this, find the pussycats so they can take you to a safe place, Eraser ordered, reaching for one of his saddlebags, but he never found what he was looking for. But they both said, worried about their sensei's safety. Sensei, there are too many of you alone, we can't just leave you here, Izuku mentioned, when a voice broke into their conversation. Leave? So soon? But the party's just getting started, Toya declared, looking completely intact while the scarred man ceased the fire attack, revealing that those men were completely safe under a protective barrier, while the Yakuza had a small bottle in his possession. When? Eraser asked, confused, seeing that the guy had what he was looking for. You should take good care of your belongings, Eraserhead, by the way. Mrs. Yaoyorozu warned us about you, she told us something about not hurting you and that she loves you, the blonde declared. Oops, I said too much, let's just say she just sends you her regards, the blonde mocked, making the black-haired man and his students open their eyes wide. Then a more powerful flare made an appearance. No matter what you do, nothing will be able to pass my barrier, a male voice said from behind the flame. When it ceased, a tall, blonde man with spiky hair could be seen, who was wearing somewhat traditional black clothes, who seemed to be the one responsible for the barriers. Good job Tengai-san, Toya mentioned, grateful to his partner. The fire may not do anything to them, but the heat. The heat, it must feel like hell in the dome, said the man with the scars, noticing how the Yakuzas were beginning to sweat a little at the intensity of the temperature. It was then that from the barrier, a man covered in glass appeared and attacked the man with blue flames, taking him out of the battlefield. The heat, it must feel like hell in the dome, said the man with the scars, noticing how the Yakuzas were beginning to sweat a little due to the intensity of the temperature. It was then that from the barrier, a man covered in. Well, with that out of the way, let's get back to what we were doing. Where's the girl? Toya asked, while Eraser began to feel his anger rising more and more. That. Wretch Eraser thought as the bandages on his neck began to lift and his eyes turned completely red. Momo's mother, Kyoka mentioned in shock, turning to look at Izuku. Are you still here? I told you to leave. Aizawa ordered, planning to finish off all these guys. Now there was a reason to do it. But sensei. The green-haired boy exclaimed worriedly. Midoriya, I thought I was very clear, but if you insist on being useful, go with Mandalay and the Pussycats. I want you to tell everyone that they are authorized to use their quirks to defend themselves. Also, I want you to look for Momo. I will try to give them as much time as possible. Eraser explained, making Izuku and Kyoka look worried about the decision. Fine, they both responded, turning around to start running. Then a shadow came out from behind the Yakuzas with the intention of hunting down the boys. Your fight is with me, Aizawa sentenced, trying to intercept the hunter, but a barrier prevented him from following them. Damn it, Eraserhead complained at not being able to follow Midoriya and Jiro. Izuku and Kyoka were now running back to the Pussycats' camp, but then the rocker stopped. Jiro? The green-haired boy asked, confused, while the purple-haired girl looked around for whatever had been bothering her. Food. A strange scream was heard that forced Kyoka to focus on the source of the voice. Then she could see the face of a very thin, medium-sized man with a white cloth covering his head, who was launching himself in her direction with his mouth open. But then a punch threw him several meters away. She saw him, those spiky red hairs and that burly back. Get away from her! Kirishima bellowed, making the purple-haired girl blush. Her boyfriend was there, he appeared to save her. Eiji, Kyoka murmured, while the redhead looked over her shoulder wanting to make sure she was okay. Eiji looked so cool that it made her heart beat. Kirishima-kun. The green-haired boy exclaimed, feeling a great relief at seeing his friend present. Are you okay? The redhead asked, focusing on his girlfriend, who nodded at his words. Food. Eat. Eat. The strange guy shouted again, when Kirishima stiffened his body completely and threw another punch at that strange guy, who grabbed his fist and began to chew it, causing Kirishima some pain. Shit. He's chewing my fist. Kirishima exclaimed, unable to move in shock. Smash, Izuku shouted, slamming his fist into the strange man's body, managing to push him away from his friend, who was looking at his very damaged hand. Eijiro, are you okay? Kyoka asked worriedly when she saw that her boyfriend was hurt. I'm more worried about what that guy can do to you, he said with a grimace of pain while looking at his trembling hand, which returned to normal with bite marks and some blood visible. We have to continue. Aizawa-sensei told me that I must inform Mandalay about the permission to use our quirk to defend ourselves, Izuku explained, but then... Food. The man shouted, standing up once more as he opened his jaws and launched an attack. In a different area we can see how sparks sprang up from Momo's constant blocks using her shield, however it was not enough to contain the lunatic who had appeared. Right now the girl had several cuts on her arms and legs. My first time with friends, this is so exciting, the girl said. She was blonde and looked a bit disheveled in her photo. Her hair was arranged in two buns with a few unruly strands escaping from the hairstyle. She seemed to be wearing some kind of school uniform. Momo looked over her shoulder and saw Kodai taking care of Uraka and the little girl, while Kendo acted as the first defense for her friend. It must be said that the gravity girl was the first easy victim by taking this stranger lightly. This crazy woman. She's going to finish us off, Uraka complained while gritting her teeth. The blonde was so agile that she was unable to apply any submission hold. My name is Toga, Himiko Toga, and all of you are cutie, the girl commented with a smile under her gas mask. Wow, I've never seen such beautiful face before, the blonde mentioned while Momo took a step back and covered her face. Momo, we need a plan to escape. I can buy you time, but you need to create something to create a distraction, Kendo mentioned, willing to sacrifice herself for the team. We won't be able to beat her. It seems she's on a very different level than us. Itsuka-chan, go back to camp, Momo asked, firmly taking the handle of her shield. I will buy you time. I don't have the necessary limpids to create more things. After so many masks my reserves are at minimum. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Now go, the black-haired girl mentioned while she remained attentive to any movement on the part of the girl. Are you crazy? He's going to kill you, the orange-haired woman reproached her for such a stupid and risky decision, when the young blonde lowered her mask, revealing a disturbing smile. Just do it, Momo shouted, watching as her enemy jumped in her direction, then received her with a shield blow, making her fall to the ground and roll a little. However, she slowly got up as if nothing had happened. She only had the mark of the blow on her. Okay, I'll do my best to come back and bring support, please don't die, Kendo mentioned, which made her fist grow. Then she lifted the girl in one hand while with the other she lifted Yui and Uraka. That wasn't nice at all, but don't worry, I'm not mad at my best friend, I couldn't, and just for that I'll express all my love and affection by stabbing you repeatedly in the abdomen so you can show me your beautiful face, the young woman mentioned with a deranged smile, while Momo gripped her shield more firmly. She's crazy and wouldn't give her enough time to create a blunt weapon to fight with, she would have to rely on the shield until Itsuka returned with reinforcements. Diaresis, I hope they make it safely, Izuku-kun, I'll try my best to be as brave as you, Diaresis, Momo thought with determination, while the image of the green-haired boy appeared in her mind. If he could make suicidal decisions that worked perfectly, she would do her best to do the same and return home. You know, I always thought girls' nights were for talking about fun topics, but maybe you've lost the practice, Momo-chan, Toga said, smiling while holding her favorite knife with both hands, ready to resume the fight. How do you know my name? The brunette asked seriously. I don't want to say it, it makes me so sad, the girl replied, putting her hands to her cheeks. Diaresis, adrenaline, if you're there, don't fail me now, Diaresis, the girl asked, starting to run, taking advantage of the blonde's distraction, with the intention of hitting her again with the shield. However, Momo left as the blonde stepped aside. It's my turn, Toga said, looking at the blood gushing out, while Momo's clothes turned red from the cut on her back. Damn it, the black-haired girl screamed, falling to her knees. Himiko, seeing that expression of pain, became excited and blushed. You're so cute, Momo-chan, I'll make you look even cuter, the girl said as she approached, only to receive another blow to the head from Momo's shield, while the former Yaoyorozu stood up on shaky legs, looking quite affected. That's not done, said the girl, changing her personality to one that showed annoyance and displeasure. I'm not going to give in, not now, so come and fight, you crazy bitch, Momo sentenced, noticing the girl's new seriousness. Apparently, her comments were not very much to her liking. Back with Aizawa, we can see him somewhat exhausted and a little damaged. Right now Eraserhead was protecting his chest with one hand, while a grimace of annoyance appeared on his face. This was due to the return of the man with the crystal quirk after the escape of the fireman, and it was his constant attacks that left the Eraser hero in such a deplorable state. Let's not make this more difficult, Eraser, just tell us where the girl is. Hojo's crystals are quite hard and can break bones without any problem, commented the talkative blonde. After all, they had the advantage. Eraser. A voice shouted behind him, and a strange, red, viscous layer was thrown over the enemies, but the protective barrier returned. Vlad, the black-haired man, whispered when he saw the blood hero at his side with his hand extended, while that viscous layer returned to the inside of his hand. A barrier, the man in the red suit said in surprise, looking at the newcomers. The boys? Aizawa asked, concerned about his students. I sent them towards the dorms with the pussycats, the white-haired man explained, taking a weight off the Eraser hero's shoulders. What are we dealing with? Vlad asked without taking his eyes off them. Mercenaries under contract, apparently, Aizawa replied, trying to get back on his feet. Who's the target? You? The blood hero asked. They've talked too much, the glass man exclaimed desperately, covering his entire body to launch an attack. Vlad, seeing this, was ready to answer, so he covered his hand with a large amount of blood that hardened quickly while he shaped it into a large fist. His intentions were clear, but when he tried to land his blow, the barrier returned, standing between him and Hojo. A barrier? Vlad asked in dismay, which was just long enough for him to receive a punch from the glass man, causing him to hunch over in pain. Vlad, Aizawa exclaimed upon seeing his partner receive that impact. It seems like they hire anyone at UA these days. I was hoping for more than a couple of professionals, but what can you do? The blonde said, shaking his head, practically having the numerical advantage. With this state he couldn't do much, but that talker hasn't moved. It seems that his gift is limited to stealing things from a distance, while the barriers are the problem. Then I have him! Diaresis, the man thought while activating his quirk. Again? The blonde asked mockingly. Vlad, I'm targeting the one with the barriers, Aizawa shouted, making the mercenaries open their eyes in surprise, so Vlad smiled and, manipulating his blood again, made his hand cover himself with his blood again and solidify in the shape of a fist bigger than the previous one, and then hit the face of the glass man, who for some reason didn't have his head completely covered. Several pieces of glass flew through the air, while those two remained in place, completely motionless because they had not expected to get an opportunity like this. It seems that you are simply the support ones, or am I wrong? Asked Aizawa, who took his tactical knife from his waist, while keeping his other hand on his chest. He was very limited, but he had to take advantage of the opportunity to immobilize them. "Here, do something," Toya exclaimed, turning to look at his partner, who was trying to concentrate on returning the barrier, but it was impossible. "I can't do it while he keeps his gaze on me. You'll have to do something to distract him, make him focus on you, that way you can return the protective barriers," Tengai said, when Hojo ended up falling heavily on his back, while Vlad smiled and approached those two idiots. "Do you have a plan, Eraser?" the blood hero asked, glancing at his companion. "Yes, you with the barriers and I with the talkative idiot," Aizawa stated as both heroes calmly approached their objectives. On Izuku's side, we can see how they were trying to handle the strange guy who seemed to want to eat them like a simple meat dish. However, they were not the only ones who were having problems, since Todoroki and Bakugo were dealing with a strange guy who seemed to be wearing a straitjacket that even covered his head, his strange mouth being the only thing that was free. On Izuku's side, we can see how they were trying to handle the strange guy who seemed to want to eat them like a simple meat dish. However, they weren't the only ones having problems, since Todoroki and Bakugo were ill. "What stupid quirk is this?" Bakugo questioned, his hands generating enough fuel to create a pretty good explosion. "Stop, Bakugo, we can't use our quirks, it's best to return to the safe zone," Torodaki said, wanting to be the voice of reason, when in a scream, the guy's teeth lengthened grotesquely and ended up creating some cuts on both students. "Fucking bastard. I'm not going to stay here and wait to be turned into a skewer," the blonde shouted, launching himself into the attack, but at that moment, Bakugo and Todoroki's feet lost some strength. "I didn't expect to find people from another group around here. The best thing we can do is get rid of the competition. Don't you think so, Rikia?" asked a long-haired man, wearing the same plague doctor-themed mask design while carrying a bottle of liquor. "It will be simple," mentioned a huge muscular guy, who approached the guy with the strange teeth, who was trying to force the newcomers back by attacking them with the growth of his teeth, but the huge guy tore them apart with simple punches. "Damn, more extras," Bakugo complained, trying to regain strength in his legs, which couldn't support him. "This is getting to us, if we don't leave now," Todoroki thought, when the blonde and Endeavor's sun disappeared, turning into a small pair of blue spheres. Thought Todoroki, when the blonde and Endeavor's sun disappeared, turning into a small pair of blue spheres. "Wow, I didn't expect to get the most outstanding pair of UA, mentioned a guy with a hat, who picked up both spheres and then saw how one of his companions was having problems with a couple of strangers. "My work is done, good luck comrade," commented the guy with the hat, turning his back on the one who was fighting for his life. Now with Bakugo and Todoroki captured, things were only about to get worse. Aizawa and Vlad managed to defeat and subdue the mercenaries. Midoriya and his group continued trying to stop their attacker, while Momo and Toga continued to duel, noticing how the black-haired girl blocked the blonde's attacks. Both of them ran towards each other. Momo managed to hit the blonde, making her fall, while she took a couple of steps back and looked down, her hands trembling as she saw how the blonde had managed to stick the knife in her abdomen. "Izuku, boo. Forgive me," the girl whispered, as she fell to the ground.